Gerald Albright, Maria Schneider, Charlie Hunter, Duke Robillard, Sean Jones, Walter Beasley, Steve Swallow. Something Came From Baltimore is a jazz, blues, and R&B podcast and radio show, and it's not really about Baltimore. Subscribe to the podcast and listen to your favorite artist or future favorite artist. That's Something Came From Baltimore. And be a part of that Be More music scene. Joe Lovano, Jeff Coffin, Paula Cole, Danuzo Makatani, Ann Passio, Ches Smith, Thunderstruck.
But it was like the banana splits. Do you remember the banana splits when we were kids?
Especially with his outfit.
Yeah, because like every member had their own personality. And like Ronald Sweets, you know, he just stood out, and Mac just stood out. He was so like handsome, and you know, and Marilyn was like this, you know, model movie star, and then Florence was like so cute. Everybody appealed to a demographic, I think. And I think that's part, you know, of the reason for their success.
Welcome to Something Came From Baltimore. I am your host, Tom Gouker. Something Came From Baltimore as a jazz, blues, and R&B podcast. And it's not really about Baltimore. In fact, Something Came From Baltimore is free. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. Today, we are chatting with Sidney Jacobs, who is a current member of the Fifth Dimensions, and he has a new solo record called If I Were Your Woman. At first, it would seem that If I Were Your Woman sounds like a gender fluid type of record, but this is Sidney Jacobs' tribute to women singers like Aretha Franklin, Barbra Streisand, her, and Gladys Knight, and they all received the Sidney Jacobs deconstruction and the rebuild. Before we get into the interview, don't forget to subscribe and then listen to it volume up or volume down so we can get the credit. Subscribe to thebox.com. It's more talk and more music. It's Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's the Something Came From Baltimore, the show. Also, if you love the Beatles, and who doesn't, I am a co-host of the Beatles Come To America, where we review all the U.S. albums of the Beatles, including Something New, 6, 65, Yesterday, and Today. And the links are in the show notes. And before we get into that interview with Sidney Jacobs, let's listen to a sample of one of the tracks from If I Were Your Woman. It is that Barbra Streisand classic, On a Clear Day.
On a clear day, you can see forever and ever and ever.
Sidney Jacobs, welcome to Something Came From Baltimore.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
I love your album, and I came after you. If you love like a real soul jazz singer like John Lucien, Peabo Bryson, David Peaston, Kevin Mahogany, then you're in the right area if you're going to listen to this album.
Well, that's high praise, man. Peaston, wow, I have not heard that name in a while, and man, he was a monster. All of those guys you just mentioned. John Lucien was one of my favorites of all time.
Oh, good.
Thank
I
you.
hear John Lucien. Like I'm listening to tones. I mean, you're an individual, all right? And like grateful of this album. This is a singer album. Don't understand. I don't know why we can't go back to real singers who can really sing.
Is that a question?
Ah, it's a
I,
statement.
it's a statement. I mean, when you were saying it, I know what you're talking about. I think my training is pretty extensive. I was classically trained in high school and college, and I'm a little older, so my listening references maybe they're maybe a bit more broader than some of the kids that are coming out today. I was very influenced by my brother, who was 10 years older than me. So he was really introducing me to classic jazz. Not a lot of singing, but players, the famous players that we kind of all know as in the pantheon, but I was just taking all of that stuff in.
I went on Wikipedia. You're now with the Fifth Dimension, and they broke down like characters. Like these are the people who are doing Ronald. These are the people who are doing Lamont, and it stops within the last 5 years, kind of where you joined. Is the group now just singers, or are you representing a character?
I mean, I think that did happen. I've been in the group now for 4 years. I think that group's evolution, its current evolution, are like 5 individuals who aren't trying to like imitate anybody, and we've created our own sound that is very compatible with the sound of the 70s, the group of the 70s, but it's us. So
last year, July 1st, I remember it like it was yesterday, I got an advanced screening of The Summer of Soul, and it really shined the light on how excellent the Fifth Dimension were, and just I was in awe. And I love Gladys Knight. I thought the Pips amazing, but
wasn't she great, man? She was like a little baby in it.
Yeah,
it just killing it. Oh man,
with that voice. But I mean, that must have given you guys a bump because they were fantastic, and it's great that this documentary gave a lot of time to the Fifth Dimension and really kind of talked about them, because I learned stuff as a little kid. I was like 4 years old when that happened. But to me, they were fantastic, and I didn't know that they had any kind of struggles. But have you seen a bump in the last year of people like really coming to shows and getting more involved?
The audience still skews pretty old, but since that movie has come out, it's skewing younger. And when younger people come, they have a reference point into the music now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I have seen it. It's still a little weird, I guess we're still in a pandemic, right? So it's still a little weird for, I think, some people coming to shows. We've had some tours canceled, but we're picking up now. But the enthusiasm of the audience is amazing. People are really thirsty for the music. But yeah, I've noticed a bump in that the audience is skewing younger, which is good. This is fantastic music.
Oh my God.
Fifth Dimension were like wonderful, just a wonderful group, man. So I couldn't be prouder to be a member.
The talent level was so high, and they could have went in so many different places, very similar to like the Manhattan Transfers, or they could have done, show tunes, or they could have done, really, the sky's the limit. They could have went more gospel. They just had that talent.
Yeah, you're right. I'm glad that Florence kept the original recipe, so to speak, intact. Florence LaRue owns the group now, and she is the sole remaining member, even though there are four of the 5 still alive. I don't know if you've been in any bands at all or groups, but It's I tell people it's like being married, but now you're married to like 5 or 6 people instead of just like one person. It's hard enough to be married to one. So, and then you couple that with the skyrocketing fame that they had in the late 60s and early 70s, all throughout the 70s, and it's always going to cause tension, especially when you have talented people. And they've definitely been through their struggles. I'm amazed that, 55 years or whatever it is later, the group is still viable. And not just out there on fumes, man. I mean, we give it all every night. And everybody on the stage can go, so it's a challenge for the singers. But it's very much a family, and that's very important to me. I've been in some bands, rock bands, R&B bands, where there was a lot of tension. People wanted to do their own thing, and they wanted to influence the group. Weren't necessarily thinking about what the group needed to be better, but they wanted to get their shine. And there's like none of that going on in the Fifth Dimension. And you can see it on stage. There's a lot of love, a lot of sharing, support. And we're genuinely just thrilled to be able to give our talent, and people are responding to it.
Would you like to ride in my beautiful balloon? Would you like to ride in my beautiful balloon?
Sidney, I don't want to bleed on your interview, but I do have I wanted to say something. I can't guarantee I'm going to use this at my final cut, but I've when I watched The Fifth Dimension, I was enamored with Ronald Townsend. Like I'm out. I've been gay and out for 30 years, but when it comes to this podcast, I am not out. I've never said a word about it, and I'm using.
Oh wow!
But when I saw Ronald, I was immediately, when I was 4 years old, I used to look at the album covers and also the shows, and he was my focal point. I thought he was dreamy. So when I saw the
that's great.
I know, and it's weird. So when I saw the Summer of Soul, I went, oh yeah, he's dreamy. And I was like, he was one of my first crushes of all time without me.
Oh wow. Without
understanding. So I was kind of curious if you were that character or whatever, because I've never really said anything in the interviews, because I'm interviewing people about their music. It's not about me. But when I came to Ronald, I've had a full year of exploring the fact that he was the first crush of mine.
Well, what I will say to that is that group was like, that it was like, this is gonna be super corny reference, man. But it was like the Banana Splits. Do you remember the Banana Splits when we were kids?
Especially with those outfits.
Yeah, because like every member had their own personality. And like Ronald Sweets, he just stood out, and Mac just stood out. He was so like handsome, and and Marilyn was like this, model movie star, and then Florence was like so cute. Everybody appealed to a demographic, I think. And I think that's part, of the reason for their success.
So the latent homosexual crowd was into Ronald, or maybe Billy.
I don't know, man. Or Marilyn.
Or Marilyn, yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah. and now, when LGBT cats, identify themselves as such, they're super into Florence, obviously. I think Florence has that kind of iconic thing that I don't know much about the gay community, and I don't want to offend or misrepresent, but notice like Liza Minnelli and Barbra Streisand. I think that there's something about those kind of icons that appeals to the gay community, and Florence has stepped into that shoes. So in those shoes within our group anyway.
So let's get into the album. We're going to talk about it. Thank you for letting me express myself
Yeah, man. Well, I've done a few of these now, and of course, my album is named, If I Were Your Woman,
Yes.
and folks have tiptoed around that subject. I'm not gay, but I have heard it kind of like on the tip of the tongue of some people wanting to ask, what the title is and what it meant. So I embrace all of that. I'm not personally, gay, but you know, I tell people, and I've been saying this for a long time, I'm like the white people that marched with Martin Luther King, for the gay movement. I might not be, but I am like completely behind equality and people being able to express themselves and being free to be themselves, man.
Well, I'll be
It's
honest
so
with
important.
you. When I looked through track listings and I saw your face and I saw that title, I was like,
Yeah.
wow, he is stepping out. Like that. And I'm serious because if that would have came out, say in 1980,
Right.
it'd be on fire. But now it's like, oh, that's interesting. You knew exactly that you're doing a cover of that song and you're not changing the pronouns
Yeah.
to fit you as a person. And that's like an artist's choice. And that's actually what got me into it. I'm like, oh, he's doing something daring. And let me listen to it. Then when I listened to it, I was like, oh, he's exceptional. Like
Oh,
he's,
thank you.
if we had the time machine and we had you back to 1992, this album would have came out and you would probably had a top 40 hit off of some of these songs because it would have got out. It would have been easy to play in a lot of formats.
Yeah, I think now the title is just like you said, a curiosity to some people, but because of all the advances that we've had in civil rights, within the last 15, 20 years, it's not raising too many eyebrows. But yeah, you're right. If it had come out in like 1990 or something, it would have, yeah, I would have raised a lot of questions, and I would have had to be prepared to
Defend your
handle
stance.
that kind of, defend my stance, which I would have done, and I'll do it now. It's, I don't think what I'm doing, well, especially in the gay community, I don't think it's anything to sing songs by female artists, but I hadn't heard any jazz singers or any like pop singers really take on a project like that. And it was my wife's idea to do it. I had a few years ago when I was performing in LA, I was looking around for some standards to do. I was trying to build up my repertoire of standards, and I don't know how, but I had downloaded this album by Nina Freelon, and it had a version of I Feel Pretty, and it was like this really robust version, very similar to mine on my album. And so I decided to cover it for one of my shows, and then folks just loved it, And I had it's been 5 years, or 4 or 5 years, I'd forgotten about it.
Now I feel pretty. Oh, so pretty and witty and bright. And I pity any man who isn't me tonight. So the baby who isn't me.
And when I was writing, because I'm just writing all the time, I have hundreds of songs, but I was trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do for the follow-up album to First Man? My wife made that suggestion. Why don't you try doing an album of all female songs? So then it was just a matter of me, like, finding the songs that resonated with me, that meant something in my life. And the first one that I attempted to do was, to arrange was Until You Come Back to Me, because that's like one of my favorite Aretha songs.
Though you don't call anymore, I sit and wait in vain. I guess I'll rap on your door, tap on your window pane. I wanna tell you, baby, changes I've been going through.
We'll play a sample of that. I also want to play a sample for the audience on a clear day. You can see forever. It's the Barbra Streisand. Your arrangement is fantastic. Just sets up this whole album. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Can I tell you a quick story about that?
Please.
I was actually there when Barbra Streisand was filming that particular scene for the movie. It happened at Exposition Park. I was 8, I think, or 7 or 8. And I was full of energy, and my mom would take me to the Rose Garden, which fronted the building that they were filming that. And so I could run around and have some clear space to move around. They were actually filming that scene, and I remember it. That's why I picked that song, because I remembered her walking down the steps singing on a clear day. They were blasting it through the loudspeakers. So yeah, I was actually there while they filmed it.
That's pretty wild. I mean, that's
yeah.
Pretty
Rise up and look around on a clear day, rise up and look around you, and you'll see just who you are. On a clear day, oh how it will astound you at the glow of your being outshines every star you feel part of, every mountain, sea and shore. You can hear from far and near a world you've never heard before. On a clear day, you can see forever and ever and ever.
the album that came out in June the 3rd, 2022. It's on your own label. It's a Sidney Jacob art label. It is amazing. I'm glad I was able to talk to you about it. Yeah, you should be proud of this one.
Yeah, man.
Come mess with the real. You want in a million. I don't let a lot of people in, but you get admission. And I don't let my walls down, but I see you building. 'Cause you ain't feeling. That's how I'm feeling. You may not wanna put my phone down. When we're alone, I wanna zone now. Baby, with you I ain't got no doubts, no. I'm just trying to let you know now. So let you know now. You were the one I was missing, the opposite of fiction, and that's who is a given, and I don't care about opinion, and that's
I hope you enjoyed the interview today with Sidney Jacobs. The album is called If I Were Your Woman. Something Came From Baltimore is free. It doesn't cost you anything but your time. The show is over. Have a great day.